This is Distant Replay, the podcast that goes back in time to relive all the greatest events that we witnessed in sports. From upsets, to championships, to cultural moments, we discuss it all. Coming up on today's episode.
Third down and 5. Pressure from Thomas off the edge. Eli Manning stays on his feet. Airs it out down the field. It is caught by Tyree. Inside the 25 and a timeout taken.
We're going back to February 3rd, 2008. Hard to believe that's been 12 years plus already, but tonight we're talking Super Bowl 42, New York Giants, New England Patriots. You heard the David Tyree catch. That was the one that we also talk about. But the Patriots, a chance to make history. One of the few times in the Brady, Belichick, Patriots dynasty they fell short. So welcome into Distant Replay. We're going to go through that game entirely tonight. That is the schedule. And a lot to talk about as we go back and look at this. One of the great Super Bowl upsets of all time. One of the great upsets in all of pro sports in all time. So let me welcome in Mike Noto to the show again with me. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Benny. How are you?
Good, man. Happy Father's Day to you. Recording this on Father's Day, so wish you a happy Father's Day.
Same to you, Ben.
Thanks, buddy. So tonight, we're talking Giants, Patriots. I'm looking forward to this game because really, I mean, it's a big game. It's one of the biggest games I can remember, especially when we were at ESPN. This game was such a big night following this and just having a lot of Giants and Patriots fans around us. But especially, I want to hear your perspective because you've grown up, as a Jets fan. So you both sides of the coin here. You've been around fans of both teams. So I want to get your perspective tonight, and we're going to do that here on the show. Let me just remind you quickly before we get started, distantreplaypodcast.com is the website. Plus, follow us on YouTube as well and on Twitter, Distant Podcast. So, Mike, where were you when this game originally played out?
I was watching a lot of Super Bowls. I watched with the same group of buddies that you know very well, and I was watching the Super Bowl with them. Just a couple friends watching.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember where I was for this game. I know I was with some friends, but I don't remember exactly who it was. But I know I was watching it, and it was a big deal. But we go back to 2008. So this is the 2007 season, and really, when you're talking about this game, you gotta talk about everything that led into this because that's what the story is. The Patriots 16-0 in the regular season, first time since they expanded to 16 regular season games that a team went undefeated in the regular season. I think it was the fourth time a team's gone undefeated in the regular season in the NFL, but this was obviously a bigger deal, winning the 16 games and then getting all the way into the end with the Patriots. So let's go back and just let's go through the lead up to this game, Mike, and let's start Patriots side. I mean, this team, it was Brady and it was Moss. They added Moss to this team and it made him dynamic, but this team was, both sides of the ball was loaded.
They sure were. So at the beginning of the Patriots dynasty, I think the team may have been more known for its defense and sort of an emerging Tom Brady. But with this 2007 season, what it became was you had Brady at the height of his powers in his prime. You added not only Randy Moss to the equation here, but you also added Wes Welker. So it's the first time now where, we're before the Rob Gronkowski era, right? So it's the first time where you have Brady with two premier weapons on the outside, and that led to both Welker and Moss having absolute monster seasons for New England.
Yeah, they had huge seasons, and you're right. I mean, this offense really was the story. I mean, after the defense, we'll talk about some of the players on that side of the ball, and they were really good. But the offense, it was a lot of record-breaking performances for that year, and they've since been broken. But the 50 touchdown passes by Tom Brady was a record that was broken by Peyton about 6 years later. The touchdowns, just the scoring. I mean, they were blowing out teams throughout the year. They had a huge differential in points, and that was really the story on offense. But in the defensive side of the ball, again, you start up front, but that linebacking core, man, when they went back through it, I forgot just how good those linebackers were for that team. I mean, Vrabel, Sayal, Bruschi. I mean, that team was very good up the middle.
Yeah, and you also had Vince Wilfork.
Yep.
You had those linebackers that you mentioned who were maybe some of them just in their prime or just past the end of their prime, but they were still very good players. very smart kind of Belichick type players. And then in the secondary, you had back then Asante Samuel, who was a very good cornerback.
Yeah, very good. Rodney Harrison back there in the back end too. And I'd kind of forgot about Sayal a little bit. I mean, it kind of brought me back to that moment because I'd forgotten that he came back out of retirement and to join the Patriots. I'd kind of forgotten about that story. I mean, he since has passed away, which it seems hard to believe that when this game happened that he's already has passed. He seems like, I mean, he was such a competitor, such an incredible player, and he had a pretty good impact in this game. But he's one of the guys that I think I've kind of forgotten about with this lineup.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, this Patriots team, let's count the Hall of Famers, right? Moss and Brady, definitely. You have, I would probably say, Bruschi and Sayal, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Wilfork,
right?
Yeah.
Wilfork, probably. He was a really good player, man. I don't think Welker was good for long enough, but he had 5 or 6 monster seasons because I remember he went to Denver and played with Peyton Manning. But there was just good players at every level of both sides of the ball for the Patriots. And this team, we can't stress enough, if you either don't remember or maybe you weren't watching sports a lot or the NFL a lot when this happened, this Patriots team was an absolute juggernaut. Anyone who tells you that they expected the Patriots to lose, I mean, they were 12.5-point favorites going into this game.
Yeah, I mean, how absurd is that in the Super Bowl to be that big of a favorite? I mean, you look through some of their games. I mean, they went all the way until the 9th week of the season in November before they had a game that was a single-digit outcome, and that's the game they beat Indianapolis at Indianapolis 24-20. But they only had a handful of games that were even within 10 points, and I think 3 total all season. 4 total, including that last game of the season, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But let's talk Giants side of the football too. Give me the backstory on the Giants because we always talk Patriots. We know everything about the Patriots, but this Giants team was far from a Super Bowl team when this season started, and even as the season started moving along early on.
Yeah, so you have to remember. So a little bit of backstory on this Giants team. The year before, they went 8-8. All right, that was Manning's 3rd year with the Giants. Tiki Barber retires after the season, right? Which was the Giants, undoubtedly the Giants' best offensive player.
Mm-hmm.
You had Coughlin, who they even said as much in this broadcast, had to basically convince the ownership to give him another year. You had a lot of whispers about Eli Manning, from not even whispers, outright criticism from guys like Tiki Barber, from guys like Shockey, about his leadership prowess, his playing ability, and things of that nature. You had all this stuff going on going into this 07-08 season, and the Giants were a wild card team.
Yeah.
They went 10-6, had to win 3 games on the road just to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they lost their first 2 games of the year to the Cowboys and Packers, which, come to find out those were 2 of the best teams in the NFC, so those losses weren't as bad in retrospect. But they lost to the Cowboys twice the regular season before beating them in the playoff, the 1 seed, Dallas Cowboys, by the way. And the Patriots, that was a pretty big game. These 2 teams played in the final game of the regular season. I think a lot of people still remember this, but that was a big matchup, and it got huge ratings because obviously 2 big teams, you're right, 2 big markets, but with the Patriots having everything on the line, the Giants already clinched the playoff berth, so it wasn't like their lives were at stake, but it still meant a lot because there was a chance for the Patriots to finish off that regular season undefeated in the Giants Stadium. And the Patriots, this was a big game, 38-35 final. And you hear some people talk afterwards, there's maybe a belief that game maybe gave them the confidence going into the playoffs, because Coughlin was going all out in that game. He didn't pull anybody back. They went out there to win that ball game, and maybe it did give him a little bit of boost heading into the postseason.
Yeah, he didn't pull anyone back. Belichick didn't pull anyone back. So that was a 2 teams at full capacity playing. And I buy that, Ben, that this gave them a sense of, wow, we almost beat the Patriots, who are this all-time team. Now we're heading into the playoffs. They played Tampa in the wild card round, and then they would avenge those losses to the Cowboys and the Packers that you mentioned earlier. I don't buy that they ever maybe had in their mind, we can't wait to play the Patriots again at that point, right? But I do buy that it helped them a lot with their confidence going into the playoffs.
Whether or not it did, we saw the outcome on the back end of it, so you can make that argument all day. So anything else leading up to this game, Mike? I mean, the big story was you have 2 different essentially two different franchises. One's at the very top of its game. The other is kind of in limbo, just kind of riding a hot streak. But even as well as they had played, nobody expected them. Even with the wins they had, they beat the number one seed Cowboys. They went to Lambeau on a game that was the coldest, I think, in NFL history, and maybe in terms of the playoffs, but it was -1 degree for that game when they went in and pulled out a late victory over the Packers. Then they had to go and then play the Patriots. So, even despite how close that last game of the season was, I still don't think anybody gave them a chance to win this game.
You had Giant fans pleasantly surprised their team was in the Super Bowl. Because remember, they had to win the 3 games to make it there. And we're coming off a regular season where Eli Manning led the league in turnovers with 27.
Yes.
I mean, in the playoffs leading into the Super Bowl, he had 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. So he's beginning to come on during this playoff run. He's getting a lot of help from the likes of Plaxico Burress, who had an absolutely lights-out game in the game in Lambeau, the game you mentioned where it was freezing and Tom Coughlin's face was a shade of red that I've never seen before or since. But again, I think you had Giants fans pleasantly surprised to be in the Super Bowl and, hey, let's see what we can do from here, that kind of mentality.
Yeah, Eli, 23 touchdowns to 20 interceptions for the season. I mean, far from exciting and electric numbers, especially when you compare them to who was on the other side of that football. And the other thing to keep in mind, too, the Patriots had won 3 Super Bowls already under Belichick and Brady. So this was a full juggernaut, full dynasty, rolling in, undefeated season. I mean, this was a freight train that nobody wanted to get in the way of when this game kicked off. So that kind of sets the scene for what this game was. It was played in Phoenix. At the time, it was or Glendale, technically. At the time, it was the University of Phoenix Stadium, and the first time they had played on that retractable turf that they have out there for that ball game. This game was on Fox, very good broadcast. You had a typical lineup that we still see: Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, not around as much, but Pam Oliver and Chris Myers. So I thought, Mike, in terms of the TV broadcast, and this was really early HD. That early 2000s, mid 2000s was kind of like peak HD, and you could tell because they had the graphics that still sat inside the 4x3, right? So they didn't have them all the way to the edge of the screen like they do now because they were protecting for people that didn't have HD. But I thought this broadcast looked really good, and maybe it's just because of the feed that we found on YouTube, the NFL's official feed. They have it up on YouTube. But this game stands up and looks like it could even have been a game that was just a couple years old.
Yeah, I think for both of us, it was a relief to watch a game that was actually in HD, because a lot of the games we go back and watch are all, awful quality because it's from the standard definition TV era. But like you said, this broadcast looked really crisp. I think we're at the point with TV broadcasts where it's like, awesome, the screen is really clear, but we really don't know what else to do with it right now. So we're just going to make sure the picture looks crystal clear for everyone.
Yeah,
there was no bells and whistles like you see now. But like you said, very good feed. I thought this broadcast team, I mean, even including the sideline reporters, I mean, they've been around forever.
Right.
If you don't like the way they broadcast, you probably just stop watching football because you can't get away from them.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned going to this game. This was the 12.5 point spread, the largest point spread in the Super Bowl in the last 18 years. Do you remember going back to 2002? You might not remember this. I didn't remember this, actually, but the Rams were 14-point favorites over the Patriots back in that 2002 Super Bowl.
Yeah, I knew they were big favorites. I didn't realize it was 2 full touchdowns.
Yeah, unbelievable, huh? So heading into this game, kicking off, getting started, really, I think you could kind of see what the Giants' game plan was early on in this, right? I think it was, let's try to ground the ball. Let's try to run some clock. Let's try to maintain possession, keep it out of Tom Brady's hands. And they did an incredible job of that in the first drive. I mean, a near 10-minute possession to open up the game in a Super Bowl. Now, the problem was that ended with a field goal, so it kind of blew that whole thing. But the fact they came out there and kind of asserted their will early, I think was a great sign for the Giants.
Yeah, and there's some major themes from this game, and one of them is, and it became basically what Eli Manning is most known for throughout his career, is being good in these situational football spots in big games. He was never much of a great regular season quarterback, but even this first drive was a little bit of a microcosm of that. He completed 2 really clutch third downs. Like you said, the drive stalled to a field goal, but the Giants held the ball for 10 minutes. We're talking about holding one of the all-time offenses off the field for 10 minutes. That's a big deal, and I'd have to believe that was the game plan for Kevin Gilbride and Eli Manning coming into the game. And you saw Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw really assert themselves. And those are two guys that you sort of forget about now, but they were huge for this Giants offense throughout this playoff run.
Yeah, they set a Super Bowl record for third down conversions on that opening drive in terms of just record for that one opening drive. But, yeah, when you said Jacobs and Bradshaw, now I'd forgotten that Bradshaw was just a rookie in this game, and I'd completely forgotten about Jacobs. Jacobs was an Auburn guy, so I knew all about him. But I forgot that he was the face, really the backfield for that team, and really he was a tough guy to defend because of his power. I mean, he compares to maybe a Derrick Henry now in a little ways, maybe not quite as fast, but yeah, that backfield was pretty tough.
Could you imagine being Tiki with the way he left the Giants?
Yeah,
not under very good terms, and having to watch this backfield when Tiki was a borderline Hall of Fame player.
Yeah,
and still playing at a very high level. And you mentioned the fact that Bradshaw was a rookie. There were several Giants rookies in this game that we'll get to that played a huge role. Yeah,
there were indeed. It was a very, very great draft, I guess, for them the previous year. I don't know if it got as much hype before, throughout the season, but it came out to be pretty big for them. The other thing early on, and before we get to the Patriots' first drive, I was shocked by, and look, the feed we're going to give you on distantreplaypodcast.com is the NFL's upload, but they cut out all the commercials. It's a pretty tight edited game, so you kind of go, there's in between plays a little bit, but going to break and coming out of break is just quickly back to the action. So maybe they did more of this than we give them credit for. But I was really, really surprised that the broadcast failed to hype up what was at stake. If you went back and watched this game, I don't even think there was a mention of it in the first quarter. Hey, this is the Patriots. Maybe at kickoff potentially, but hey, this is the Patriots trying to do what nobody else has done. This could be the greatest team of all time. Like, none of that was being talked about at all during this, really throughout the game, but especially not early on to set the stage.
No, not at all. I mean, they kept right to the game. Game action is what they called. I really like Joe Buck. I know a lot of people don't, but if there's one knock on Joe Buck you get is that he's a little bit boring and that his emotion never really changes throughout the broadcast.
Yeah.
And you couple that with the fact that, there was really no mention of the stakes here with an undefeated team. So that's good. That's a good to point that out, Ben. I noticed that as well.
Yeah, pretty incredible. We know that this is what TV does, right? They have to produce and they have to build the storylines. And the story, like, this was one of the greatest storylines of any Super Bowl, and it wasn't being talked about so very much. So I thought that was kind of odd in this game. And again, maybe there was more of that coming in and out of breaks that we didn't get to see in the replay, but still, I thought there'd be more conversation during the game itself. So the Patriots get the ball back, and Patriots go right down the field as well. The quarter actually ends with the Patriots have the football. So you had an entire quarter, and we have not gotten through two full possessions, which is crazy. And I did not remember that at all.
Yeah, we're not even through two full possessions. We're at the end of the quarter. But two other things that, again, I thought the first quarter was a big scene-setting quarter. Number one, you have Brady pressured on the very first offensive play of the game for the Patriots. And number two, I had forgotten about the ankle issue with Tom Brady.
Yeah,
I had completely forgot about that. And again, that would become, I think, a big reason why the Giants would have success later in the game that we'll get to here a little bit later. But that was a thing. It wasn't made a huge deal about, but there was some mild concern about his ankle, and that was good that they did bring that up throughout the broadcast.
Yeah, good point there. So we had the second quarter again, 3-0 Giants after the first quarter. Patriots, though, punched it in first play, scored touchdown, take the 7-3 lead. And I think, in this moment, and I kind of think I remember this a little bit watching it originally, but this kind of was the sense that, okay, the Giants just came out and went 10 minutes and really kind of set the tone, had control of the game. They only get 3 points. The Patriots come right back down the field and get 7. And I think at that point you're thinking, okay, well, look, the Patriots are going to get their points. There's really no slowing that down. And if we weren't able to really get them out of sync early on by not giving them the football for that long, man, we might have some trouble tonight.
Yeah, this is one of the few games that I could remember watching still. And that's exactly what you thought. Oh, no, here we go. Here we go, that this is the Giants are going to have to score 24 to 30 points to win this game is what you were thinking at this time. And, that wouldn't end up being the case. And especially after the next drive when we had an interception from Eli Manning.
Yeah, and right before that interception, Eli had made a pass that kind of was going to be maybe foreshadowing what would happen later in the game, but one of these rolling out and just kind of throwing it up. Toomer brings it on the sideline, a 38-yard passing catch, kind of sets him up for maybe more points. But again, as you mentioned, the play or the drive ends after a pick, but the pick was not really Eli's fault. It bounces off Steve Smith's hands, come out of a break really quickly, trying to get his head around. The ball's on him really fast, so maybe it is a little on Eli, but off his hands, it's intercepted at the 10-yard line. So again, another opportunity. You're thinking, God, the Giants are right there knocking on the door. You have 2 good drives, and you have 3 points.
Yeah, another rookie, Steve Smith, by the way.
Right.
Okay. So you have 2nd-round pick Steve Smith, 7th-round pick Ahmad Bradshaw that we've mentioned already. And Steve Smith, although, again, like you said, he tipped this ball, he should have probably caught this ball. That was the interception here, but he played a major role in this game also.
Yeah, by the way, I'd forgotten that Bradshaw was a 7th-round pick. Great 7th-round pick, huh? Well, he turned out. Jeez.
He was a very good running back.
Yeah, he was solid, man, solid. So there's big plays during the second quarter. I think even though the score wouldn't really indicate much happening in this quarter, I thought there were some big plays. That turnover obviously being one of them. There was another one where the Giants, a handoff right into Bradshaw's chest that somehow he fumbles it. I don't know how the Patriots didn't get it. A guy jumps right on the football, literally on top of the football, and somehow Bradshaw wrestles it away from him and gets the ball back. Now, it was on their own 30. They didn't end up doing anything with the drive, but turning it over there on their own 30 would have been a big momentum shift.
The biggest story of this quarter was the missed opportunities for the Patriots to increase their lead, of which the 2 most prominent ones are the interception on the Steve Smith tip that we just talked about, and then this Bradshaw fumble where, like you said, the Patriots player was fully on top of the ball, and Aikman was right on this. I mean, just a good hustle play by Ahmad Bradshaw to get the ball back.
Yeah, the Patriots really, I mean, it was just a game of missed opportunities for them throughout. But another, I think, interesting note was the Patriots only had 2 3-and-outs all season, and they had 2 out of their first 3 possessions in this game.
2 all season?
Yeah, didn't they mention that on the broadcast? I'm pretty sure they mentioned that on the broadcast.
That's a stat right there.
I now Matt to double check it because I thought you would have caught that too, but I'm pretty sure they had said only 2 3-and-outs. Now maybe it was playoffs, maybe, but it doesn't surprise me if this team only had 2 all year with as good as this offense was.
That is some stat.
Yeah, but they, obviously early on this game they were struggling offensively. A lot of that was the pressure by the Giants, and again, the Giants fumbled it late in this quarter again. But both teams really, it was a lot of Patriots, but both teams honestly in this quarter had a lot of missed opportunities, and really that's what you can sum up the first half was. Both teams, I think, seemed pretty locked in. I wouldn't call it nerves necessarily because they made a lot of good plays. They're moving the football. They just weren't finishing drives.
Yeah, and you have the Giants get away with another fumble late in the quarter, like you mentioned. You had Randall Gay, who should have intercepted a pass there as well in one of those drives. And again, it's just these missed opportunities are mounting. But again, as you're watching the game, you don't really think that's going to matter because you think the Patriots are so overwhelming.
Yeah, they're definitely. So go to halftime. Halftime show, by the way, Tom Petty. Man, this was back
you
when,
have to remember, we're not that far removed from Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake. So
it's true.
We're still paying our penance for that. So we're not getting anything that could even be remotely conversial here at this halftime report.
Hey, but look, I like Tom Petty. I like the Rock halftime show, so I'm not against it. But yeah, they went a little conservative compared to where things had been in previous years. So coming back to the third quarter, and again, this third quarter starts off much like the game did. The Patriots drive right down the field. Now there was couple of big plays. There was a 12 men on the field for the Giants, which gave the Patriots gave them a first down when they were punting, which is a huge mistake. But it didn't end up hurting them because, again, Patriots go all the way down the field, did not score. But I thought this was a very, very big decision by Belichick. He passes on a 49-yard field goal. It was 4th and 13. Instead of giving the kicker a chance to kick the 49-yarder, he throws the ball, and it's a turnover on an incompletion.
Yeah, did you think I would have thought the announcers would have been a little more critical of Belichick in that moment? I mean, they didn't question him at all. I think they actually said they agreed with the call, but it's 4th and 13, and Gostkowski was younger back then. But still, with that said, you have a quarterback in a climate-controlled, dome there, a retractable roof stadium, whatever it is, and it's a 49-yard field goal, and it's 4th and 13. It's not like it was 4th and 2.
Right.
That was one of these sequences of the game that you forget about, but as you go back and watch it after having the benefit of knowing what happens, you kind of scratch your head a little bit.
Yeah, and he was in his second year, and he only attempted 5 field goals that were 40 yards or longer. I mean, credit to the offense, but he was 21 of 24 for the year, and I think they mentioned his long was maybe 47. If it was 4th and, say, 5 or 6, I get it. But the fact that it was 4th and 13, I just don't know why you don't take that shot. But you're right. They didn't question it a whole lot. They kind of justified the decision, and maybe it wasn't awful, in the moment. But you look back on that game after you see the outcome, and that turns out to be a pretty big decision. At least not getting the opportunity there to add 3 points.
Absolutely. Now the Giants didn't take advantage of it at all. I mean, they punted, but still just a missed opportunity to put points on the board.
You got anything else in the third quarter? I thought the third quarter was pretty uneventful, really like a lot of this game, but not a lot happened. I thought that was the biggest moment there.
I have a random – it might seem like a random moment in the game, but I thought it was huge. At the end of the third quarter, the Patriots had a 3rd and 15, all right? And instead of – now this is a team who just went for it on 4th and 13.
Right.
Instead of trying to go down the field and getting the first down, they threw a wide receiver screen. To me, that was the first sort of admission from the Patriots that this pressure is a lot for us. We're not even sure if we can get our guys down the field to get them open against this defense.
Right.
And number 2, maybe this is where Brady's ankle comes more into play. I don't know. That's speculation. But for a team like this to throw a wide receiver screen on 3rd and 15, I thought was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah, some questionable decisions there. So fourth quarter, again, setting it up. Still same score, 7-3 heading into the fourth quarter. Now, keep in mind, as we mentioned, this was a 38-35 game just a few weeks prior to this when they met in the regular season. And the Giants still had some pretty good offense. I mean, their numbers weren't bad. The Patriots now, their offense had dropped quite a bit compared to what they were used to that year. But the Giants were moving the football. They just were not scoring in this game. So fourth quarter, Giants go right down the field. Start off the quarter with a big drive, scoring a touchdown, taking a lead. And at that point, it's all of a sudden 10-7. Giants have a lead in the fourth quarter. And you're saying, buddy, this might actually happen.
Oh, yeah, that's the first time you perked up in your seat and you said, wow, the Patriots left the door open and the Giants going to actually walk through this thing. And the big play of this drive was to Kevin Boss, another rookie tight end, who was the 5th-round pick of the Giants. They immediately showed Jeremy Shockey in the luxury box with his buddies with a bunch of beers in front of him, which I thought was funny. But you have Shockey again, kind of symbolic. Shockey was very, very outspokenly critical of Eli Manning. Shockey is injured at this time. And the announcers even say, like, hey, what do you think is going through Jeremy Shockey's mind right now? His understudy just made the biggest offensive play of the game for the Giants. But again, just a little thing, a little tidbit that I thought was a pretty interesting when looking back.
Yeah, I do too. And that touchdown, by the way, was to David Tyree, 5-yard touchdown from Eli Manning. And Tyree didn't make a ton of plays in this game, but every play that he made was crucial.
And Tyree, Joe Buck, when Tyree made that catch, he called it, quote, Tyree just made the biggest catch of his life.
I missed that. That's a good catch. Yeah, that's awesome. So kind of back and forth from there. Again, 10-7 Giants, but kind of traded possessions back and forth the next two before Brady gets the ball back with about 8 minutes left, and they kind of march right down the field again. A very methodical drive, a lot of short passes. Wes Welker, Kevin Falk, by the way, was a beast when he was healthy and kind of at his peak. But Randy Moss got in the mix a little bit here as well before finally they get in the end zone. 2:45 left. Randy Moss just, who did he blow by? Was it Corey Webster? But
yeah, it looks like Webster, a combination of Moss and Webster. It looked like he might have slipped.
Yeah, he kind of put a move on him. Webster slipped, and Moss was wide open for the touchdown to give them the 14-10 lead with 2:45 left. What's everybody in New York thinking at that point, Mike? 2:45 left, you're handing the ball off to Eli that has to come back and drive down the field and score a touchdown. What do you give? What are the odds that actually happens?
All right, so first, let's go to the Giants defense, okay? Throughout the Strahan era, okay, Strahan is romanticized a lot more now after they won this game than I think he was before that. But the knock on Michael Strahan defenses for years was when they needed to make a stop, they never did it, right? So watching this game with Giant fans, what they're saying is, here we go again. We played a great game, better than anyone thought we could play. But in the end, what happened? The Patriots figured out a way to get Moss involved on that last drive. They figured out what the Giants were doing on defense, and they just drove right down and scored.
Yeah.
So at this point, we got the, oh, woe was me, this happened again kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, the two really good points there. The defense kind of lets them off. Then you got Eli coming in, who hasn't played bad, but again, at this point in his career, there's not a lot of confidence in what he's able to do.
There is no indication that he's going to do what he's about to do. Let's put it that way.
Now, let's talk about this drive, okay? So we know this drive. We talk about it. We see the play. We had the highlight to kick off the show. Eli had a couple plays, and I'm just going to start. Let me just go ahead and throw it out here to begin this drive. I think this was the worst, maybe the worst. I'll go ahead and say it. The worst final drive to win a ball game. I think in the play, let's say in the playoffs, meaningful game. With the worst touchdown drive I think I've ever seen to win a big game in the playoffs in the NFL. The Giants had no business moving the ball down the field with the way they executed on this drive. With Eli and some passes that were just kind of lofted up, not even talking to Tyree pass. A couple that should have been or could have been picked off. Near fumble. I mean, it seemed like every other play was a near turnover or just kind of a what kind of throw was that? That's how I felt about it. And of course, the biggest play on this drive is Eli rolling out near sack. We've seen it all, and Tyree makes the catch of a lifetime in order to save that drive on 3rd and 5. But I don't think they had any business. And watching this thing over again, there was nothing good about this drive except maybe the last throw.
And it was not methodical. It was not surgical. Like a lot of these final drives. When I think of a final drive of a game, I think about like Elway against the Browns, right? And how surgical it was and methodically went down the field. Anything but it in this drive. After the Jacobs 4th down conversion early in the drive,
right,
you had this sequence to hit your point home. You had Manning come so close to getting strip sacked. I have no idea how he didn't get strip sacked.
Yep.
The next play, you have the Asante Samuel missed interception, which, again, I don't know how he missed that ball. He just mistimed his jump. Then the next play after that, the 3rd down, is the Tyree play. 2 parts of that Tyree play. One, he just threw the ball up in the air, right? That was I think it was a lucky play. I think we can all agree on that. But the second part of it is, if I'm a Patriots fan, I'm looking at that and saying, how is he not in the grasp?
Right.
I don't know how the play didn't get whistled dead. That's always been my thing with that play.
Yeah. Yeah. You can make that argument.
And then, I don't know. I don't want to say, I don't think that play was iconic in the moment. I think it became a lot more iconic after the Giants punched it in.
I don't know. I remember it being
I don't know.
I
didn't get the feeling. Maybe it's just because the way Joe Buck calls it, you can never get a sense of a moment. But
yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah, it was a great catch. You know what I mean? There's no doubt about that. That's not taken away from that. But this drive, again, as a whole, a lot less impressive than you would think the game-winning drive of the Super Bowl would be.
It was trash. He got sacked the next play, then threw an incompletion, then had to convert a 3rd and 11. It's a great pass. I mean, Steve Smith got it by a yard. He made really a great play by Steve Smith, by the way, to know where that first down line was and get there. That was a huge play. And then the next pass, he throws it in the end zone for a touchdown. But all told, I think it was the worst drive I've seen to win a big game before.
And Ben, do you know what people look back at? So we went back and watched the game, right? So, I can't stress enough what you just said about Steve Smith. That was a huge play. That more than made up for earlier in the game where he missed the ball, went off of him and got intercepted. But what people latch onto with Manning are his stats here in the 4th quarter. He was 9 for 14 with 152 yards and 2 touchdown passes in the 4th quarter,
Yeah.
That's what people latch on to because it's easy to just go look at stats. But I agree with what you said. If you actually go back and watch it, still impressive, but less impressive than the lore would have you believe.
Yeah, there's no question. I think that was really that's his career, right? I mean, for Eli,
yeah, and the next Super Bowl versus the Patriots, he was great in that one too.
Yeah. But he finished the day, and again, a lot of this came in the 4th quarter, but 255 yards, completion percentage not great. He was 19 of 34, a couple touchdowns, interception, to sack 3 times. So, he had a couple of big plays, but overall, I think it was a decent game. But to win a game of that magnitude, not even just the Super Bowl, but to beat the Patriots like they did. I mean, it was a complete team effort for them to do it, but for that to happen, I mean, it still seems ridiculous. The Patriots did get the ball back. Brady wasn't able to do a whole lot again. Pressure was the problem. He got sacked, a huge sack on that drive. Really kind of took any opportunities they had of getting down the field. And they just had 30 seconds to go anyway, so they didn't have a lot of time, but didn't really have much of an option there. But there was one play. I mean, Brady almost hit Randy Moss on like a 70-yard throw. If he had just another yard on that thing, Moss got behind the two defenders and had him beat. The ball was actually dropped in there, but it just wasn't out far enough to where the defense still had a chance to make a play.
Yeah, I had forgotten all about that play, to be honest with you.
Incredible.
There's one of these plays every game where it's a pretty big play, and I completely forgot about it. I had forgotten about that. That was a lot closer than I remember it being.
Yeah. So the Patriots lose the game. Eli Manning kind of secures his spot with the Giants, and Tom Coughlin gets some job security. But most importantly, the Patriots failed to really finish off a historic season. And, as good as that regular season was and as good as this team was, what is this season worth? You know what I mean? I mean, this might have been. Do you think this is the best Patriots team they had in all the Brady years?
Yes. I don't think it's particularly close, but yes.
Wow. So again, nothing really to show for it outside of a regular season that's still the best regular season of all time. But beyond that, nothing else.
Well, you may be able to sell me that the teams where they beat the Panthers and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, they might have been more balanced, right? Because I think the defense was a little bit better maybe back then, because all those guys were more in their prime.
Right.
But the offense was nothing like it was in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, this season.
Yeah. So pretty incredible game, and still hard to believe that the Giants won that game. Even watching it a second time, the Patriots I just don't think they played a great game. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the ankle of Brady. Maybe it's a game plan of the Giants. But if you watched that game by itself, you wouldn't have come away with this is one of the best offenses the NFL had seen up to that point.
Yeah, I think it could just be a matter of they just didn't get into a rhythm.
Yeah,
the whole game until that last drive that we talked about. A lot of offenses are predicated on rhythm. The Patriots were no different. And I think that's really what got them in this game. And a lot of what kept them from getting into a rhythm was the Giants' pass rush. I mean, they had 5 sacks. You can make the argument that some combination of their linemen should have gotten MVP over Eli Manning. And they were really the story of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were. I agree with you there. So we move on post-game. Moving on from these games, we saw what the Patriots have done. The Patriots have still gone on and had an impressive run, and Brady still would stay with that team for 13 more years and be a thorn in your side, particularly. But the Giants, too. The Giants, yeah. I mean, the Giants were good for a number of years, would go on again still to beat the Patriots in another Super Bowl, which seems unlikely, but it was, Eli Manning, I guess, has been the kryptonite for Tom Brady.
Yeah, those in the second matchup, I think the teams were a little bit more evenly matched. I don't think the Giants winning was that much of a shock, but I mean, these Patriots-Giants Super Bowls, what a disaster they are for me. I mean, I'm not really friends with that many Patriot fans. I'm friends with a lot of Giants fans, but just as a whole, just having to hear about these two teams in the Super Bowl when you don't root for them, but every talk radio segment and news radio segment and newspaper is about these two teams. Oh man, it's brutal. But hey, look, they gave us 2 good Super Bowls though.
Yeah, 2 great Super Bowls, and really, that the Giants were the reason why they went so long. The Patriots between Super Bowls. I mean, Super Bowl wins at least. 04 to 16. Was it? So pretty
15, 15 against the Seahawks. Yeah.
Pretty incredible that worked out that way. Or 14, 14, 15. So those two franchises, we've seen what they've done. Both coaches, Belichick's still there. Coughlin still, do you think Coughlin got enough respect? What's your overall feel on Coughlin?
My overall feeling on Coughlin is a lot of times when a coach loses his players, loses the locker room like he did, undoubtedly he did. When he came into this team with all these veterans, it's very hard to then take that and reshape your reputation within the locker room. He did that. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Look, this is a game that featured 2 Hall of Fame coaches and 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I know Eli Manning's controversial, but he's getting in the Hall of Fame, folks, so get used to it. But Coughlin, look, I mean, my opinion of Coughlin is I think he's just as good a coach for the Giants as Parcells was.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't think Giant fans think that because I think they romanticize Parcells a lot because when Parcells came, the Giants hadn't been good in a long time. But you can make the argument that Coughlin did more with less in terms of player personnel.
Now, we've done 2 Giants Super Bowls now on the show. Which ones do you think? I mean, we did the one they won previous to this back in 91 over the Bills. Which game do you think was a better overall Super Bowl?
Ooh, you're splitting hairs. The actual play on the field, I think, was better in the Bills-Giants game.
Yeah.
But the drama attached to the game, you're going to be hard-pressed to beat this game.
I'd still take the other one, the first Giants.
That was a great game. The actual play was one of the most efficient, well-played football games I've still ever watched.
Still a ton of drama at the end too, the way it ended as well.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
2 great Super Bowls though. I mean, all 3 of the Giants Super Bowls have been dramatic victories, so pretty incredible. Going on from there, outdated stuff. I didn't have a lot, so the only thing that I really had that really kind of caught my attention was Sobe Life Water being the Super Bowl halftime sponsor. Is Sobe still around? Are they still in business?
Ben, my note says exactly this. Sobe Life Water halftime sponsor, and then I have ... Are they still around? So that's a very good question.
I think they are, but
yeah,
I don't know.
They're not as prominent with the commercials or the advertising as they once were, and that's good. I noticed that. And then some of the quote unquote celebrities that they showed in the stands. It's amazing how much pop culture changes in 12 years, isn't it?
Yeah, name some of the ones that you noticed.
Jim Carrey and Jenny McCarthy, who were a couple at that time.
Right.
Pam Anderson, LL Cool J.
LL, yeah.
Who's still relevant. Kate Hudson. Could argue she's still relevant now. And they showed Frank Caliendo in the stands, which I thought was funny.
Yeah. Him and his family.
That guy, man, he's still going. He may be the most, besides LL Cool J, he may be the most relevant out of everyone I just named.
I think he might be. He might have the best career right now currently. That's pretty good. So overall, not a ton outdated. Again, this game's it's 12 years old. It's hard to believe it's that old, but really, again, the production quality by Fox was superb, and it was one of the rare times that you go back and you say, okay, this game could have been, I could be watching a game that was played a year or 2 ago rather than 12. And really, this might have been one of the first like true HD Super Bowls. There probably was one, maybe 2 before this, but this was kind of really as people were starting to buy those Black Friday HD TVs and bringing them home and hooking them up. And this was a great production. So I can't mention that enough. I was really surprised by that. What other thoughts you have, Mike, before we wrap up this episode?
I think we covered about everything here, but you think about all the arguments about Eli Manning and is he this, is he that? The one thing you can't take away from him though is this fourth quarter he had. Although it may have been herky-jerky and sort of unimpressive like we talked about, I mean, just what this would lead to in terms of sports radio and arguments and is he a Hall of Famer, is he elite? It all kind of started here. And, just a great game to go back and watch. And then, we're in the middle of the era here where the Mannings and Tom Brady sort of carried the NFL. And that era would last until you could argue is still going with Tom Brady to this day, but would go on for basically another decade. And just a great game to go back and watch.
Yeah, it was fun to go back and watch. I didn't remember it being as, I guess, boring maybe is the right word for how this game was.
I agree. It was – I agree with that.
But still, pretty, like you mentioned, you had just came off a Manning win, and the year prior, they go back-to-back, the brothers. That was the story. But still hard to believe the Patriots lost this game with the roster they had and the really both sides, all around, everywhere you looked, they were loaded with incredible players and still fell short in this game. It's hard to – if you play that game 20 times, the Patriots are going to win it 18 times. Maybe even 19. It almost felt like.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what else was cool? Seeing Peyton Manning in his box there, cheering on his brother. That was pretty cool.
You like that?
Yeah, that's cool, man. Hey, man, I think that moments like that are cool because Peyton Manning probably doesn't know he has a camera on him. He probably knows he has a camera on him, but not in the moment. And I think you got some pretty genuine reactions during the game from him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He was definitely locked in, and you could feel he was invested and really cared about what was happening, and was probably thinking a lot of strategies that game was unfolding as well. So, all in all, good game. Not quite as exciting as I thought it was going to be, but still, you got to go back, and this has to be on your list of games you go back and rewatch because, I mean, what was on the line in this game and the chance that the Patriots had to, and I don't even know, what do you think happens if the Patriots win this? I mean, do you think it changes their next handful of years? Because as I mentioned, it was a long time between, 10 years between Super Bowl wins. Do you think this changes things at all if they win this game and cement this undefeated record?
I don't think it. No, I don't think. I mean, their spot in history is increased a lot more, and I think it even adds a different level to the Brady Belichick dynasty if you can get to another level. But I think what it does is as we get along into 09, 10, 11, 12, there's these questions like can they win again? They started to go deeper into that 10-year drought of not winning one.
Right.
I think that may have been affected where they wouldn't have been hearing as much there. And I don't think the second matchup between them and the Giants would have been as hyped up as it was when they met again in 2011.
Gotcha. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Again, Patriots fall to the Giants in the Super Bowl 42. Pretty hard to believe still that's the way that one played out. February 3rd, 2008. Was this game. So remember, you can hit subscribe and have every episode downloaded right to your device. Please do that. We thank everybody that's done that so far. If you want to leave a review, we'd appreciate that as well. But find us online at distantreplaypodcast.com. We'll have the links. You can watch this entire game just like we did, plus every game we've done will be up there as well. Find us on YouTube. Thanks to all of our new subscribers over there as well. We appreciate that. And then on Twitter at Distant Podcast. Mike, enjoyed the show, man. We will catch up again soon for another old classic.
Until next time.